Okay, we saw yesterday that we began the sugya of avodim. We began yesterday the sugya of avodim. We said that an eved that is captured, if they're freed for avdos, they're still avodim. If they're freed for ben chayrin, they're free. Whether freed for ben chayrin or freed for avdos or ben chayrin, you're still an eved. Okay, we said machloikis between Abaye and Rabbi Pshat in the Mishnah. Abaye said it's speaking before Yush. Memela, if you free the Eved l'shem avdos, he goes back to the original owner. If you free him l'shem cheres, he's going to write l'shem cheres, even though it's speaking before Yush, he's going to go free, because if not, maybe they would not free him. They don't want to free someone who will go back to freedom, and therefore they'll free him. Now, according to Rava, it's speaking after Yush. So the kasha is it's speaking after Yush. Why if you go ahead and who is Mishubit to? So the second owner, the person was Paida, who Mishubit to them. The Shem Cheres, since it's after what? It's after the original owner was Miyayish, so of course he goes free. Why does Rav Shimon Gamliel hold, right? By Abaye, he holds that they both stay. That they both stay. He says there's a mitzvah to go ahead and be paida. So therefore, since the mitzvah to be paida, they won't go ahead and refrain from going ahead and doing it. And therefore, there's a mitzvah to be paida. And according to Rava, it's that we want to stop them from going ahead and escaping to an invading army, and thus going ahead and freeing themselves. As therefore, that was the machlokes between the two. We said, where is according to Rava, that's after Yush, that the second person, who's he being kind of from? He's being kind of from a guy. What kind of kinyan does a guy have? We said the guy has a kinyan, the Maaseh Yadav, right? The guy has a kinyan in the Maaseh Yadav of the Eved. Okay, so we're up to Lamed Ches Amid Aleph, right? And now and we learned that again, the Kal V'Chomer. We said that it was the Kal V'Chomer. Let's start over there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines down. Yachol lo yiknes emizel l'maaseh yadav am Kal V'Chomer. Oivik kechavim Yisrael koina, and Oivik kechavim can be koina Yisrael for his maaseh yadav. Oivik kechavim like kol shekain. Certainly, an Oivik kechavim can be koina another Oivik kechavim for maaseh yadav. So Mamela, when the captive, he has the maaseh yadav of the captive, of the one, and now he's going ahead with that kinyan. That's what the second person is buying, and therefore he would serve the second person. That's what we're up to. Now, how we're learning out of Kal V'Chomer. Now, when does a guy have a Jew as an ever for maaseh yadav? When he buys him. There's a sugi in the end of Bahar, or Koisai, I forgot which parsha, that when they're very poor, so a person sells himself into slavery. They sell himself to a guy until someone's paid to him. So the kinyan is with kesef. Good? The kinyan is with kesef. So I have a Kal V'Chomer. If the guy goes ahead and acquires with kinyan kesef, right, with kinyan kesef, there he would acquire maaseh yadav. What happens if he doesn't acquire with kinyan kesef? Let's say he acquires with kinyan chazaka. What are you going to say? Because a Jew is kind of karka with a kinyan chazaka, right? But a guy is all the pasha of kinyanim is with kesef. Read Gemara Kasha. The Ema, let us say, when does the guy acquire maaseh yadav of a Jewish slave? Ani mili bekaspa. That's only with kesef. Avo b'chazaka, but with chazaka, when you have to make a kinyan chazaka, Rashi brings the kinyan chazaka of a guy. He would dress you. He would show simani avdos, right? Loi, maybe not. In other words, so how do you know that a guy acquires a guy al yidei chazaka, right? So we can bring a maisa Amar Papa. Amun and Moav tiru b'sichai. We have Amun and Moav tiru b'sichai. Now it's an interesting parsha in the Torah. We're not supposed to chepa with Amun and Moav. They come from Lot. Amun and Moav both come from Lot. We're not supposed to attack them. So how are we supposed to acquire the land of Amun and Moav? So Hashem did the very thing. He had Sichon go ahead and beat them up. So Sichon acquired the land. Sichan Melech HaMori, we have no problem attacking. We have no problem attacking Sichan Melech HaMori. So how did Sichon acquire the land from the Goy? They Chazaka through battle. They overcame them. So you see, Chazaka works. So says the Gemara, Ashkan Kechavim, that a Goy from a Goy Chazaka works, just like Sichon captured it from Ammon and Moab. Kechavim Yisrael Minalan. How do you know Kechavim that acquires a Jew b'Chazaka? How do you know Yikoina Ma'aseh Yadav? The Chsiv, it says, Pasuk says, Vayoshev Mimenu Shvi. I think that's what the Pasuk says. Let me just make sure. I want to read the wrong Pasuk. I check wrong. So the Pasuk says, I was wrong. Vayish Mimenu Shevi. It says, Vayishma Knani Melech Ara Yoshev Negev Kivo Yisrael Derech Hasarim Vayilachem Yisrael Vayish Mimenu Shevi. You see that they acquire through Chazaka, the act of, in this case, war. They're acquiring a Jew. So you see that Oiv Kechavim has a kinyan Chazaka by a Jew. It says Vayish Mimenu Shvi. Amrav Shami Barav Rabbi Yochanan. Eved sheborach mi Beis Asurim, an Eved that goes ahead and runs away from Beis Asurim, Yotz l'Cheirus, he goes free. Let's say he's captured, he's in jail, he runs away from jail, goes free. Lo yoid, el shekayf nes rabbi, the Kaisel will get shechur. Not only does he go free, we force the master to go ahead and write a shtar to Meshachrim to free him. Tanan, Rav Shimon Loimer, ben kach u ben kach. Rav Shimon says whether you went ahead and freed the slave for the purpose of slavery, or you freed the slave as a ben chayrin, yishtabek, he still remains a slave. Amar Rabbi Rav Chana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Anytime Rav Shimon Gamliel is mentioned in the Mishnah, halacha is like him, with three exceptions. So here's the kasha. How can you tell me that if a person runs away, he goes free, right? If he's captured and he's meshubid, and you even if you're hoidehim l'shem cheirus ben chayrin, he's still a slave. So how do you contrast the pediyah of a ben chayrin and he's a slave versus running away and we force him to go ahead and free him? How do you contrast the two? So Bishleim Labaya, who said speaking Lefnei Yush, the Mukilolo not Lefnei Yush, who said I missed this speaking before he gave up hope. Bahayla Acha Yush, so very geshmak. When do we say that you would be imprisoned? You're still a shibud. That's before Yush. So since the owner wasn't Yayish, you'd get him back. When would you go free? When he runs away, that's speaking Lacha Yush, and therefore he's free, and we force the owner to give him a get shechur. After all, the master gave up hope. So I have a way of reconciliating the two. El Rava, the Amar La'acha Yush, but Rava, who, as we said in the Hakdama, he went ahead and said the Mishnah La'acha Yush, right? And the whole reason of Shimon Gamliel is that you shouldn't throw yourself into an invading army to go ahead and barter your freedom. Kasha, the Rabbi Yochanan. How can Rabbi Yochanan say one that he's imprisoned, and by Borach he's free? That's the Kasha. Amalach Rava. Time of mind, what's the reason of Rava? What's the reason of Rabbi Shimon Gamliel that even if you go ahead and be paid to him l'shem ben chayrin, that he's still imprisoned, right? Well, he's still a sheep, he's still an eved. Because the Chizkiah is then. What was Chizkiah then? That Chizkiah then was right. That we're worried that he's going to throw himself to an invading army. So Bareach shiny. Bareach is different. Why? Why is Bareach different? If he's running away, right, and he's trying to escape, what's going to happen? They'll kill him. So obviously he's running away and he's willing to die. You think he's going to go ahead and throw himself in an invading army? So in other words, the svara does not apply. Again, what's astira? Astira is a Mishnah. If you pay the l'shem ben chayrin, you are meshubed according to Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. Then we say if you're running away, then you're free. How can you reconciliate? One, you said he's still an eved, and two, you said he's free. So we have a bias very good. He's still an eved before Yish. He runs away, it's speaking lacha Yish. But Rabbi, who says the Amish, the dinner of Shimon Gamliel, is speaking after Yish, how do you explain? So we said very geshmak. the reason for Shimon Gamliel that he's still an Eved is why? Because we're worried that he'll go ahead, find out there's an invading army, and go ahead and give himself over to an invading army for the purpose of being captured and then being freed. So to avoid that, we say, don't do that because you're going to be a slave anyway. Mashenkin by Barach, he's endangering his life. He wants his freedom. And if he runs away and he's caught, he's going to be killed. So if he's going to run away, we're not worried about him joining an invading army. And therefore, the svara of why he should be a slave, according to Shimon Gamliel, does not apply. And therefore, even after Yush, right, we have a teretz to answer the kasha, right? The whole svara being that he's going to throw himself in an invading army. If he's Barach, he's not going to go ahead and throw himself into an invading army to avoid a captivity. Says the Gemara Vaita. A few cases. Amsei Demar Shmuel Ishtaboy. The maidservant of Shmuel was captured. Parkua Lushum Am Hasa, and a second party, not Shmuel, went ahead and was paidaha l'shem that she remains an Eved. Okay? V'shadru alei, and they sent him back to Shmuel, and shalach lei the following message: Anon Reb Shimon Gamliel Sririlon, we hold like Reb Shimon Gamliel that whether you're paida l'shem Eved or you're paida l'shem ben chayrin, you're still an Eved. So we have no problem. However, inami k'Rabbanan Sririlach, but if you hold like the Rabbanan, who hold if you're paida l'shem Eved that she is free, if you're paida l'shem ben chayrin she's free, then another shum amasa parkin Allah. We went ahead, Nehela. We went ahead and we redeemed her for what? As an Eved. We redeemed her as an Eved, she remains an Eved. The Inus, okay. The Inus Avar, and they held that was speaking with Yush Habe. Right? In other words, they guys, what's the Maisa? Shmuel had, look at me. Shmuel has an Eved. The Eved runs away. An Amasa, female servant. She runs away. Why do I say she runs away? Excuse me, she was captured. She was captured. Some good Samaritans went ahead and Mekayim the mitzvah of Padiyah, they were Paidah. They're now returning her to Shmuel and saying she's still an Eved, Mimanav Shach. If we hold like Rav Shimon Gamliel, so it doesn't make whatever difference with Paidah. But you who would hold like the Rabbanon, if you do hold like the Rabbanon, that there's a chilik between the Shem Eved and the Ben Chayrin, be aware, we went ahead and we were Paidah as an Eved. Now, they're holding like a Baya, and they thought it's speaking Lifnei Yush, so they're giving it back to the original owner. Guys, according to Rava, after Yush, who's getting it? The second owner. If it's speaking Lacha Yush, the original owner is not getting back. Good? It's the second, the one who was Paidu is getting it. So obviously, if they're returning it to Shmuel and saying, we were Paidu it L'Shem Avdus, and you're giving it back to the original owner, they must have held it's Lifnei Yush. And that's why they're sending it back like a buyer. Guys, very important. Again, one more time. They're returning this maidservant who was captured to Shmuel, using the following reasoning. We hold like Rav Shimon Gamliel, who always holds it doesn't make a difference, whatever the Padiyah is, whether it's L'Shem Eved, whether it's L'Shem Ben Chayrin, you're getting it back. And if you hold like the Rabbanon, who are of the opinion that only if it's L'Shem Eved you were paid do you get it back. Now, who's getting it back? Shmuel, the original owner. So obviously, they must think it's speaking Lifnei Yush. Because if it's speaking La'acha Yush, then Rava says, who gets it? The one that was paid. So therefore, we can ascertain when they're giving it back to Shmuel, the original owner, they must have held, even if they said we hold like the Rabbanon, it must be Lifnei Yush. And we're returning it to the original owner. So it says the Gemara of Elohi, it wasn't true, but it was La'acha Yush Have. It was La'acha Yush. So now, if it's Acha Yush, and they're sending it back to Shmuel, right? Then and they're holding like a buyer, then what? Then they're free. And Shmuel, not only can he take her back as an Eved, right? And she wouldn't even need a get shichra. She'd be free even without a get shichra. And why? Because Shmuel tamei. Shmuel goes according to his reasoning. The Amar Shmuel, because Shmuel is of the opinion, hamafkid avdoi yotzel cheres. Someone is mafkir is eved. It's yotzel cheres. Veina tzarich get shichra. and you don't need what it gets shechra. Anyone's mafker and eved, right? It goes free, and you don't need what? You don't need a get shechra. In this case, it will be tantamount that they're kind of being mafka the eved over here, because they went ahead and they would pay for Shmuel, right, and not for themselves. Okay, so now where do you know that if you're mafka and eved it goes to cheres without a get shechra? It says by Korban Pesach, the chol eved ish miknas kesef. Eved, now it says chol eved ish. Why do you have to say eved ish? The word ish is extra. So ish v'lo eved isha. Can it be that the ownership of an eved who's not gemalit could stop you from eating the Korban Pesach and not an isha? Ela eved sheyesh le reshus the rabbi love. Eved ish. Eved that belongs to an ish. Kari eved. She'ein le reshus the rabbi love. But if the master does not have any reshus over her, in this case Shmuel has no. See, since he was miyayish, he has no jurisdiction over her. Ein kari eved, right, and was not called an eved. Mainly, you would not, since you're not called an eved, you would not need to get shechra. So again, an incident that touches upon the machloikis in the Mishnah between Abaya and Rava, according to Abaya and the Shita of Rav Shimon Gamliel. A second case. Am Seder of Abba Mar Zutra is Shtaba was captured. Parka Ahu Tarmudah. There was Tarmudah was a guy, and he was Paidah L'Shum Issasa. He wanted to marry her, so he's Paidah because he wanted to marry her. Shol Chulei L'Didei. The Chacham in that city sent a message to Rav Abba. Iyoyis Abda. If you want to help her, Shadul Gita D'Chirusa. If you want to help her getting out from this guy, send her a get shechra. Now, Hechidami. Idamatzi Parakla. If the people in the city are able to buy her back from that guy, Lama Legita D'Chirusa. Why do they say send her get cheres? Go ahead and be paida, and then return the evet to Abba Ma'asra. And he delay matzi parkala. And if this Tarmuda, this guy, is not going to take money for her, and therefore, right, kishad legita d'chirusa, I have her, right? What are you gaining by sending against shechras? Again, what happened over here? She was captured, and she was oiskale. She was redeemed by a guy. The guy wanted to marry her. So now the chacham of the town told Abba, send her a get shechra, and that seems to go ahead and going to take care of any problem of her being in the possession of a guy. If they're able to be paida from a guy, why does he have to give a get shechra? Just be paida her and return her to Abba. And if the guy is not going to take money, what does it help to send the get shechra? She's still stuck by the guy. That's why I read the Gemara. And for the Gemara, no. Mari is speaking about so oilam the matzi park away. They could go ahead and be paida her. But keeping the mishad l'gita, since they're going to get shechra, havuri machri adade uparkila. If I told you guys we have a din of pidyon shvoyin, and once the person goes free, they'll be a free person, or once the person goes free, they'll remain an eved. The chances of us getting together and spending money would be more apt if she's going to be a free woman. So the MS, the sending you Rav Abba sending to get shechra is just a hechet timsa to ensure that we'll get enough money together to be paida. But in achinami, in other words, when we said if you can free her, take paida, this is just the means. When he said send to get shechra to get it together. Now, why would it help? Be by a sema, another teretz, loilam loy matzi parkle, the other way. This Tarmuda would be not willing to take money for this girl. After all, he wanted to marry her. The kivin in mishad gita, and since he sends her a get, the chirusa mitzala ba'apei, she'll become less in his eyes. And then he'll go ahead and in other words, as long as he thought he was getting a free woman, right? He thought he had this woman. Obviously, he wanted to marry her. She was a captive. He went ahead and he was paid to her. Why does he find out all of a sudden that this isn't a free woman? This is a slave. This is a bondswoman. This is a slave. How did you know he's a slave? Because you just sent to get shechra. So what the get shechra will do will facilitate him willing to go ahead and he'll be a bit disgusted by the fact that this woman is a slave, and thus he'll go ahead and agree for the pidyon. So that's what you're accomplishing. According to the first teretz, you're accomplishing by sending to get shechra that the Jews of the town will get together and be paid to her, because now she's a free woman. According to the second teretz, by sending to get shikra, you'll ensure that the Tarmuda, the guy who went ahead and mispaidaha, will be willing to go ahead and sell it to you. Read the Gemara, the mashma that if he finds a Jewish bondswoman, it's going to be something that's disgusting to him. I've Amar, it's Gemara in Avodah Zarah. Chavivim lehen behimasin shel Yisrael yoshim inish seihem. It's more chavid to a guy. A guy would rather be involved with the animal of a yid, his nus with an animal of a yid, than a regular guy, because that's shaykhus to a Jew. So Mamela, the same thing by the shivcha of a Jew also would be something that he'd find exciting, and therefore what he won't let it go. So that's only b'tzina we say such a concept. I will be fahesya zila b'hu milsa, but fahesya that finding out publicly that she's a slave, that for guy for his publicity would not be good, and therefore he would free her. A third case. There was this woman in Pumbedisa and Amasa, and men would they would do Isurim with her, they do this nus with her. Amr Abaya, he loved Amr of Yehuda Meshmuel, Kolam Shachra Avdoi Oive Basei. The pasuk says, guys, La'olam behem tavodu, by Never Kanani, La'olam behem tavodu, they should serve you forever. Right? So now, since there's an Issa being vatna asay of La'olam tavodu, says Rabbi Yehuda, right? I would free this woman. I don't want, in other words, as a free woman, she could get married, and then she'd be in the protect again. And when a goyishus, a shifcha kananis is freed, she becomes a full-fledged Jewess. So then she's more apt to find a husband to protect her. So says Rabbi Yehuda, the name of Shmuel, had I been able to, I would go ahead and free her if I wouldn't be over this of lam tavodu. So kol mashachar eved over basei. I forced the master to free her. Ravina Maki ha, when she in a situation like this where this woman is being abused for Yisurim, then in that case, Rav Yehuda Mishum Milsa di Yisura, right? And since it's a Milsa di Yisura over here, it's a matter of snus over here that's going on, and therefore, even though there's an Isser of Lo'ilahim Ta'avoidu, it's a mitzvah say not to free them, in this case, Rabbi Yehuda would be Moida to go ahead and free. And don't, avoid this nus and be Mavatal Yaseh Olim Ta'avoidu. Further one, Rabbi Mishim Yisura Loi, right? There's a buyer who said that, what? That does he not hold that to go ahead and refrain a person from snus? It's better to go ahead and free. There was a Maisa with a certain woman. Okay, we met this woman before, right? Heshi and I own a slave together. Heshi frees his half. This free half now is a Jewess. She's stuck. She can't marry a Ben Chayrin because of the Tzad Avdus. She can't marry a guy because of the Tzad Chayros. So they had such a woman. That's a Chatzi Eved, Chatzi Bas Chayrin. Okay, the only person she can marry is an Eved Ivri. And says the Gemara. Amar Rav Chanina bar Katina Amar Rav Yitzchak Ma'isa Be'isha Achas Chetzia Shivcha v'Chetzia Bas Chayrin Amid Beis. The Kaf was Rabbi for Asa Bas Chayrin, and you forced the issue. Why? Because you wanted to get married. So you see that what with a Makkah mitzvah, you go ahead and free. So why would a buyer hold out? You couldn't go ahead what with there's nus over there that you shouldn't free the woman. So Nachman says the reason they freed it because minik hefka was noigba. So you have a kasha. Why would a buyer hold initially that you couldn't free her? So hachi hashta. How can you compare the two cases? Also, by the case of the chatzi eved chatzi bas chayrin, right? So you can't marry an eved because of the tzad of chayris. Ben chayrin chazi because of the tzad avdus. Yeah, no, but hacha after the miyachel la'avde yomantala. Over here, it wasn't necessary to free her to marry a Jew. She's able to marry a slave. So therefore, don't free her and get a slave to watch over her, and she wouldn't have a problem with snus. So that's why he held him tavodu stays in place, and you don't go ahead and free her. That's the difference between chatzi and chatzi bas chayrin, that there's no one who could possibly marry her, versus what the case of an amma Ivriya that a guy, a never Kanani can marry her. Kufa, going back to what we said before. Amrav Yudah Mishmuel, Kolam Meshachra Avdoi, Oiva Basei. Anyone who's Meshachra Nevid is Oiva Basei. Shnemar, Lo'ilam Mem Ta'avoidu. It says Lo'ilam Mem they should serve you. Lo'ilam Mem Ta'avoidu they should serve you. Mesivei, Ma'asav Rebbe Eliezer, Shenichnas Beis HaKnesses, Lo'imatza Asara. He didn't have 10 people, but he had an Evid with him. V'shichra Avdoi, V'shlimu Asara. So what do you see? Now, how can you say there's a Isra of Lo'ilam Ta'avoidu? You see that to go ahead and complete the minyan, he freed him to get a 10th minyan. It says, the mitzvah shiny. The mokem mitzvah, then you can go ahead and be mevatel the mitzvah of asay of lo'olam ta'avodu. So to go ahead and facilitate the minyan, that you could do. Go ahead and facilitate the minyan, that's possible to go ahead and do. It's a lot of rate on this Gemara. Remember something about creating a shade, a goylem. There's a shayla, I think it's in the Chacham Tzvi, if I remember correctly. I don't remember the simon, but can you make a goylem? Can a goylem be mitzvah to a minyan? Because if he could, why didn't Rebbe Eliezer make a goylem rather than free the Eveds? In other words, there were other ways out besides going ahead and doing this. Fascinating. Okay, Tanabana. Lo'olam ta'avodu b'shus. Rabbi Yishmael. Rishus says it's not a mitzvah to say, but it's a rishus. If you want, lo'olam ta'avodu. Kiva mechayv, it's a chayv. You can't free them. B'tilma Rabbi Eliezer sabala commandam rishus. Now, the Gemara is asking the following. You just had a Gemara that asked, Olam Tavoidu, how in the world did Rabbi Eliezer free the Eved? Maybe he held like Rabbi Yishmael, that's a Rishus, and therefore he freed. You came over to Teretz, that mitzvah shiny, that meaning it's really a chiyuv to keep him imprisoned, but the Mocha mitzvah, I'll keep him in prison, meaning in bondage as a slave. But the Mocha mitzvah, I'll take him off the hook. That's what the Teretz was. Now we have a machloikis between Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva. Lo Rabbi Yishmael, that's only Rishus to keep Mes and Eved. So what's the kasha? Maybe Rabbi Eliezer tells like Rabbi Yishmael that it's only a Rishus to keep Mes and Eved, and b'makom, and therefore since you need for a minyan, there's no issa. So why we come up and say mitzvah shiny? Maybe Rabbi Eliezer holds like Rabbi Yishmael, it's a Rishus, and therefore he would have the opportunity to free him without no problem. Says the Gemara, I'll tell you why. If you Rabbi Eliezer sabla commandam of Rishus, says more loisal. You can't say that. The Tanya behedya. Rabbi Eliezer, it says openly. Rabbi Eliezer oimer chayva. Rabbi Eliezer says it's a chayv. Rabbi Eliezer says it's a chayv. Amar Rabba. Bahani tlasmili nachte balibatim minachseyim. If these three things, balibatim, people they lose their money, right? What are they, right? One, the mafki abidahu lecherusa, you meshachri eved, and you over the asay of ba'olam televaydu, who the siren nechsayu b'shabata, and you go ahead on Shabbos, you go around and survey your property, looking what the needs of your properties are, and in the pasuk in Yeshaya says, "Ichibartu me asayis derechecha mimsei chetzecha." What does we learn out? The Chacham learn out. And Gemara in Erev in Daf Lamed Ches, she'asel la'adam is asik binyonei nechasa b'Shabbos, right? You should withhold from looking into your monetary needs on Shabbos, so you will lose your money. A third thing, utikaboyis u'desayu b'Shabbato be'idnei be'midrasha. They were kaveh since people didn't have time to learn during the week. They were working on Shabbos. The Rav would darshan. And what does this person do? Instead of going to the drasha, he makes a suda. So therefore, he places his priority on food. He will lose his property. There were two mishpachas in Yerushalayim. Achas kavas sudasa b'Shabbata. One would be kaiveya the suda when the chachamim was speaking. The achas kavit sudasa b'erev Shabbos, and one was made his ikka suda erev Shabbos. The ikka suda is supposed to be on Shabbos, not Friday night, or they would stuff their face erev Shabbos and therefore not be hungry when the suda of Shabbos came. So all these people will lose their money. Ushneim, these two mishpachas nekru, they also lost. There was not left over any males from this mishpacha. Nekru, they were gone. Okay. Now Shmuel said that he mafkar and avgar, he goes out to Cheres and he doesn't need to get shechra. Good. So we see there are other opinions. Again, according to Shmuel, that mafker avda, if you mafker your eved, because he runs away, he's hefker. And we said if you paid to him, the guys were paid to him, and Shmuel gave, and it was after Yush that he was mafker the eved. After Yush, you mafker the eved, he goes to Cherus, and he doesn't need to get shechra. So we're going to have a dissenting opinions on that. Amar Rabba, Amar Rav, Hamagdish avdoi. A person says his eved is hegdish, good. Yotzel Cherus, he goes free. My timer, what's the reason? Now, guys, there's two possibilities when you magdish eved. Either you magdish the worth of the eved, or you magdish the eved for the kedushas domim. In other words, for his body is not koine. His body is not by hegdish. It's hegdish owns him, but they own him for his worth, his value. So the Gemara says the following: My timer, what's the reason? Gufulay kaddish. This right. In order to have kedushas haguf, you have to be born on the mizbeach, correct? We make distinctions, guys, between kedushas mizbeach and kedushas bedek habayis. Kedushas haguf, right? It's kedushas haguf. Kedushas haguf is. I'm sorry. It was 4 o'clock we started. Okay. Anyway, kedushas haguf is only shaykh by an animal that can be bought as a korban. So it must be that he's kaddish lebedek habayis. That means for his value. Good. So there's two possibilities, guys. Listen up. I could say the following: this eved is kodesh, and that means he's kodesh what for his value. That you would go ahead, you would redeem him on the slave market, and whatever his amount is, would go to hegdish. There's a second thing. You'd say amagdish his domim. In other words, he's not magdish to the Beis Hamikdash, but amagdish whatever he's worth to the Beis Hamikdash. So either way, hegdish is getting the money. Are they getting the money because they own him, or are they getting the money because I want to give you his value, but I never was magdish in the first place? So over here we're saying he's magdish him, but nonetheless, hegdish will only get his value. So the following: Amar Rabba Amar Rav, Hamagdish avdoi yotzel lecheres. You magdish an eved, he goes to lecheres. My timer, gufo like kodesh. Again, his body's not kodesh. He doesn't right. It's not kodesh. His body can't go on the mizbeach. So all he is right. He's only kodesh to kedushas bedek habayis. Now, if he would have said the may eved olay lehegdish, he'd be chayiv to give that value. But the may loy kamar, he didn't say that. He didn't say I'm giving his value to the hegdish. He said I'm magdish the eved. Am kodesh kamar. So what did he mean by being magdish the eved? He meant to say this eved should join Klal Yisrael. Let's go through it outside. There's variables here. It's impossible for this eved to have kedushas haguf. If you magdish a shar, you magdish a sheep, and it's tamim, that animal has kedushas haguf. They begin meila, mamish, the whole 9 yards. If I would say I want to give the value of this shar to the Beis Hamikdash, then the shar is not kodesh, but whatever it's worth, you'd give to the Beis Hamikdash. Good? Okay. Now, this person can do the same thing with an eved. He could say this eved is magdish to the bedek habayis, then Hegdish would sell him for his value, or he could say, I want to give the value of this eved to the Beis Hamikdash. Either way, it's not possible to say that the eved himself is kodesh, correct? So what does he mean when he says it? It must mean he's saying, I want this eved to join the am that's kodesh, meaning it's a lashon of shichror, it's a lashon of freedom. That's what Rabbi is saying. Again, it's a lot between the lines. One more time. Amar Rabba Amar Rav, Hamagdish avdoi. Someone who says my eved is kodesh, yotzel lecheres. My timer, gufa like kodesh, guys. Why? Because he can't be. And he didn't say, I want to give his value to the Beis Hamikdash. So what did he say? Right? What did he say? The lahave am kodesh kamar. He was saying, I want him to join the am kodesh, and therefore he's free. Mamish alam this. That's Rabbah. That's Rabbah in the name of Rav. Rabbi Yosef Amar Rav. Rabbi Yosef says in the name of Rav, Hamafka Avdo Yotze L'Cheres. Someone who's mafker is Eved goes L'Cheres, which was Shmuel's din, right, guys? Shmuel's din. Since it's speaking after Yush, therefore the Eved was Hefker, and therefore when the guy bought it the second one, he's Yotze L'Cheres. And Shmuel said a Chiddush, he doesn't even need a Shtar Shichur. On that point, we're going to go ahead and disagree. Manda Omar Magdish Kol Shekain Mafker. Manda Omar Mafkir Magdish. Where there's a possibility to say he was Magdish's worth, nonetheless we say he goes free. Kol Shekain Mafkir, where there is no other tzad to say that he belongs to anybody, certainly he goes free. Again, there's more of a svar to say by the lashon of Hegdish that he's not free than there is by the lashon of Hefker. So certainly, if a person says you're Magdish and he goes free, certainly you would agree if you're Mafker, he goes free. Masha Enkein, if a person says Hefker, he's not locked into saying Magdish goes free, because maybe Magdish he means L'Demei. Says the Gemara, Manda Omar Mafkir, however, Avol Magdish Loi, because Dilm L'Demei Kamar. Maybe he means L'Demei. So right now, we have Shmuel's din, Yimafker Eved goes to Cheres. We have Rav's din, Yimafker Eved goes to Cheres. Shmuel said you don't even need to get Shichur. Says the Gemara, Yiboilahu, they asked, Sarach get Shichur, Eloit Sarach, Kashma, Dom Rav Chia Bar Oven Omar Rav, the key word being Rav, Echad Zeh, whether it was Hegdish, the Echad Zeh, or whether it was Hefker. What's the din? Yotzal Cheres did Sarach get Shichur, and you would require a get Shichur. So we have machloikas between Rav and Shmuel, whether you're Mafker and Eved, or you're Magdish and Eved, whether you need to get Shichur or not. Guys, you good? I spoke a lot. I've been talking a lot. A little sense, yeah? A little, some bobbles. Good. We'll accept that. Now, Amar Rabba, u'moisvinon ashmaitza. That you say that it goes l'cheirus, in other words, the only way it goes l'cheirus, guys, if you say it's an am kodesh, right? If you say it's l'demei for his value, right? He doesn't go l'cheirus because he was never right? Good. So now we're going to ask on Rav. Rav says you go free. I'm going to show you that you don't go free if you're Magdash Eved. Omer Rabba, I have a brisa that is going to go ahead and be a steer to the sugya. Your opinion. A Magdash nechasav. You're Magdash all your property. Now, guys, obviously, if you're Magdash all your property, what is that? Is that for Kedushas Aguf or Kedushas Domim? Obviously, it's Kedushas Domim. All my property has no shaykhis to Kedushas Aguf, correct? So therefore, it must be you're being Magdashit l'demei. Now, v'hoyu behem, and among your property, you have avodim, then what's the din? So now, I was Magdash to Eved. So let's go through it, guys. Let's go through it. What does Rav say? I'm Magdash le'eved, yotze l'cheres, correct? Yes? Hasha. Ein hagizboyin rishoyin l'hoitziyin l'cheres. The Gizborim do not have a right to go ahead and free him. Even if someone would give him money that he can go ahead and buy his way out, he would not be able to buy his way out. They could sell him to somebody else. And what? And that money, lehegdish, would go to Hegdish. The acherim and the other people who buy him might see some lecheirus, they could go ahead and free him. Okay, we'll get back to this in a second. Rabbi Rebbe's of the opinion, I disagree with the Tanakama. I would say that if someone would give him money, the Ein Rabbi Rishuspa, then he would be able to buy himself free. It would be unnecessary to sell him to another person to free him. He could buy his way out. Right? Why? Because it's like the Gizber is selling him to himself. It's like he's not being paid to him. It's like he's selling him to himself. Okay. The bottom line is, what do you see? You see that what? He doesn't go free. He doesn't go free. In the hands of Hegdish, he's not going free. Why did Rav say? Rav said, "Hamagdish avdo yitzotzel cheres." And for the Gemara, masnisan karamis aleh the Rav. You're asking a Rav, a steer and Rav from a brisa. Rav Tanahu Polik. Rav has the chashivas of a Tana, and he can argue on a brisa. One of the Yesodis of Shas is that an Amoira cannot argue with a Tana. And therefore, most of Shas Bavli and Yerushalmi is predicated upon when an Amoira makes a statement, we'll ask him from a Tanoic source, a Mishnah, a Brisa, a Tosefta, a Sifra, a Sifri. We'll ask him from a Tanoic source, and he can't argue on that. Rav is unique. When push comes to shove, if I don't have a teretz to emphasize Rav has the chashivas. Again, he was a Talmud of Rabbi Chia, who was a Talmud of Rabbi. That was mamish the time of the end of the Tanoim. The greatness of Rav, he was considered a Tana, and therefore he could argue. So over here, you're telling me you're Magdash Nechasim, you're Magdash all Nechasim, right? And you're Magdash all Nechasim, and therefore what he's not Yoitz L'Cheres. Rav can argue, say if you're Magdash Nechasim, he goes L'Cheres. Okay, there's a kasha over here that I think it bears spending a few minutes on. We said the following, that the Bezdin cannot sell him himself, but Bezdin can sell it to somebody else, and that person can free him. Let's see, Bezdin can't free him. Let's see Rashi over here. The Rashi Dima Masl guys, Gizborim do not have the ability to be Moitzim L'Cheres. And even if the Eved himself would give him the money, he can't do that. The Kaimelon, Eved Koines Atzmai B'Kesef. An Eved, if he gets the money together, can go ahead and acquire himself a Kesef. If someone would give him the money on the condition that his master does not have a piece of the action, then Poidu Es Atzmai Miyad Bolov. However, V'hani Gizborim Ein Rishayim Lakach. They don't have rishus to be poida, allow the Eved to be poida. She'ein Gufa Koina Lehegdish. Because they don't own him. They don't own him. Fellas, if you buy an Eved Kanani and you're a Koyin, you know what? That Eved Kanani can eat Truma. Guys, if you're a Koyin and you go ahead and buy an Eved Kanani, he can eat Truma. If you buy an Eved Ivri, he cannot eat Truma. Because an Eved Ivri Ein Gufa Konoi. The Eved Ivri's body does not belong to you. You have rights for his working, so you don't own him. An Eved Kanani is basically an animal. Your chamor can eat truma, your Eved Kanani can eat truma. The reason is because Gufa Konoi, you acquire him, you own him. In this case, what did the guy do? He was magdish all his property. He wasn't magdish the guf for the Eved, he was magdish the demay of the Eved. Shalei Yaktishan el ledomim, says Rashi. He was only magdish the domim. Vizu derech shichruhu, v'loi derech mechira. And to go ahead, and this is what the way, if you free him, is the way of freeing, and right, and not derech mechira if he's played himself. But you could sell him to somebody else. If they want, they can go ahead and free him. Okay, that's the mitzvah of the case. Fellas, here's my kasha. The Gizber cannot free him. But if he sells it to a second guy, that second guy could free him. You can't buy something more than that person has to sell. How does the second person who buys him have a right to free him if the first person can free him? He seems to be getting more of a bilus in this Eved than the Gizbar himself. But why? You're telling me since the guf is not acquired by Hegdish can't sell him. Masha Enkain, once Hegdish does sell him, then the second person does acquire the guf, so he frees him. Guys, you hear the kasha? Okay, one more time. I own this bottle of water, right? I own this bottle of water, but I only own the plastic. I don't own the blue tape. Good. I sell it to Dr. Press, and Dr. Press sells the blue tape. How could Dr. Press sell the blue tape? I didn't have a right to sell it to him in the first place. I only owned the plastic bottle. So how could the second person sell the Eved if the first person couldn't sell the Eved, couldn't let him go free? How could the latter person let him go free? Why is that so? How could the second one have more rights than the first one? That's the kasha. Yeah, Avi.
So I think the fact that Hegdish really could sell them, but it is a technicality that it's impossible for them to be kona him. If it was technically possible for Hegdish to make a kinyan on him, then they'd have rishus to sell him also. So they really have the koach. It's just that there's something in the way. So once they sell him, that's something in the way gets removed.
Okay, so Avi was mechaber to the Ran and the Ramban. He was mechaber to the teretz to the Ran and Ramban. When a person's magdish is nechasim, the most he could have is l'demei. In other words, there's a limitation to hegdish, right? You are magdish kol nechasav. Among them is avadim. What can hegdish acquire? What they can only acquire what they can acquire, which is his value. Acquirement of his value is not enough bilus to go ahead and sell him. Now, the original owner, he was misalik himself. The original owner, when he was magdish it, when he was magdish, he's out of the picture. Hegdish has a limitation, but the original owner is out of the picture. Now, when the second guy buys him, he has no limitation over there. He's not limited to Demei. He's buying the Eved. And now, since the original owner is out of the picture, Einachinami, the second person can acquire his goof as well. And mainly he's able to free him. That's the lumdus over here. Very good. Avi, excellent. Excellent. So it could be a nice lumdus over here, I thought, to explain the sugya. Okay, weiter. Toshma. Okay. We're going to ask on Rav. Again, what did Rav say, guys? Right? What did Rav say? Rav said that if you're magdish and Eved, it's Yotz L'Cheres. It says, the pasuk says in Vayikra, Ach kol cheirem asher yachrem ish l'Hashem mikol asher loy me'odam u'vehema lo yimachev lo yigoyel. It teaches us that what a person says on an object, if a person says on an object, everything that he has is cheirim, that there's a kedushas, there's chalak kedushas aguf on the chayfes, and it's also to sell or to be poida. It says lo yimachev lo yigoyel. That's it. That's it. What do you do with the chayrim? You give it to the kohen. It has a kedushas aguf. You give it to the kohen, right? And now the kohen, he could use it whatever he wants, right? Umei adam. So might as well it says Yochem min adam elu avadav v'shiv chaysav akananin. If a person would say that they're kedoshim, it's chaluk kedushas bedek habayis. So what do you see? That you don't go to chayris. It says kol chemer sheyachram lo yimachav lo yigoyel. You don't go to chayris. So how can you Rab say you go to chayris? There he said mefurish lidamei. He said it. I was never magdish the Eved at all, guys. Meaning, I said this Eved, the worth of this Eved should be Hegdish. If you say the worth of the Eved should be Hegdish, of course the Eved's not going 3. You were never magdish the Eved. Again, I could be magdish the Eved, and then he's Kodesh to be sold. If on the other hand, if I'm magdish the worth of the Eved wasn't Kodesh. All I said, whatever he's worth is Kodesh. So that's what it's speaking about over there. That's why it's not Yotz L'Cheres, because I never was magdish the Eved. I was just magdish the worth of the Eved. Ihachi, if you're telling me that you're magdish the worth of the Eved, idach nami la'amul l'demei, then the brisa before, right? That why don't you say it's l'demei? In other words, the one that you said you're magdish your nechasim, and the Eved goes free. Why does the Eved go free? Right? Look, guys, why do you say it's we gave it to, like. Look at what was your kasha on Rav? Your kasha on Rav was that the Eved doesn't go free. What's your raya? Because only the first guy, they can't sell it, but the second one could free him. So you see, he wasn't free, right? So why do we get, right? We gave that. So we said, Rav Zatanan argues. Fred the Gemara kasha, why did you come on to fetch the teretz that Rav Zatana and argues? Why don't you give the same teretz that it's speaking l'demei? look at me, guys. Let's get this clear. I'm talking a lot. I'm not convinced everyone knows what's going on. Aim, says Rav, if you're Magdish and Eved, he goes free. Question from a person who's Magdish all his property, we see he doesn't go free. Says the Gemara, Rav argues on that. He said, Tani argues. Second Kasha on Rav, right? Second Kasha on Rav from the Pasuk of Chayrim, that Pasuk speaking where you were never Magdish the Eved, that Pasuk speaking where with what you were Magdish only his worth. Read the Gemara now, going back to the previous Brisa. Why do you have to come onto the Doichik Dika Teretz to say Rav is not a Polig? Why don't you give the same Teretz? That Brisa is speaking where he's Magdish Ledemei, that he was never Magdish the Eved. Now the Gemara is going to show you why that's not a tenable answer. He's going to show you why it's not a tenable answer. Ihachi, if you tell me the Brisa where he's Magdish is the Chosim, that he was Magdish the Eved only for the worth of the Eved, but he wasn't Magdish the Eved himself, Sheina Gizbarim B'shoin Loitzil Necheris, Gizbarim Ma'avidatayu. What shaykhs does Gizba have to this Eved? This Eved wasn't Kodesh. Guys, the Eved wasn't Kodesh. You only Magdish his value. So the Gizber can't sell him. Of course the Gizber can't sell him. Lenny can't sell the blue label. It's not in his Rishus, the blue label. The Eved's not in the Rishus of Hegdish. So what are you telling me? Why do you have to tell me that the Gizber can't sell it? If you only Magdish to the May, it must be that what? You will Magdish the Eved. Next, another proof. The Su. Sell it to the next guy can free him. There is no acherim. They had no right to buy him. He was never kodesh in the first place, right? And the Su, Rabbi Omer Ani, who noising demei atzmoi v'yotzeh mefesh kamoichroi. And if someone gives the Eved money, the ein vayla rishus boy, and he now has money to pay himself, v'ila demei my mefnei kishi meichroloi. What do you mean? Because like he was never kodesh in the first place that you're selling himself to himself. There's no one to sell to. So obviously, guys, back in our model, that Brisa, the first Brisa, can't be speaking with the May. It must be your Magdish himself, and therefore the Besna can sell him. The second one could sell him, and he could be by himself back. Mashenkin, the latter Brisa, could be speaking with the May. Okay, wish everyone a great Shabbos. Enjoy. Thank you.